Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Today, we will talk about the rest of the epic Beowulf. Last time we talked about Beowulf, we were on the 11th episode, All Sleep Save One. From the name of the episode, we understand that Beowulf's men go to sleep except for Beowulf. So Beowulf is away because he's going to wait for Grendel to come and attack the mead hall. And here Beowulf is talking about his ability, his superhuman strength, and he says that he can kill Grendel with a sword, but Beowulf himself is far superior to Grendel in battle. So that's why he thinks it would be cheating. It wouldn't be fair to fight with Grendel using a sword. That's why he says, because he says no battle skill has he. So he thinks Grendel has no battle skill. He has no training for fighting. He has no training of using a weapon. So in order to be fair, as Beowulf is the embodiment of pure good, he decides to fight Grendel with his bare hands, defeat Grendel with his bare hands. And this speech, this boasting, the function, the purpose of this boasting, it is like one last encouraging heroic speech. If you have ever watched historical movies about battles, you can see the king or the lord or the hero, the champion, whichever, makes a encouraging heroic speech before the man attacks to the other army. It is like that. This one is like that. This is to give his men courage, give his men and cheer them up in the face of the threat, the danger. So we see that in this Grendel, in this episode, this short episode, Grendel arrives at Heorot. He's called a traveler at twilight. It is a kenning that means Grendel that is used instead of his name. And episode 12 is about the fight between Grendel and Beowulf. So in this episode, we see that there is an excitement in the action. How do we understand that? We see more verbs, more action verbs than nouns or adjectives, which are more like descriptive. So the narration here is an exciting narration. It is an active, speedy narration. And without interruption, the bard, the poet, tells the events one after the other. And in this episode, we see that Grendel is at the center of narrative. So until now, most of the epic was not from the point of view, but the central character in the most of the epic was Beowulf himself. But at this in this episode, we see Grendel's experience. We see Beowulf from Grendel's perspective. The poet tells what happens to Grendel, not what Beowulf does. And here is a foreshadowing in line 25. Providence means heaven. So the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God. Providence will not to permit him any more of men under heaven to eat in the nighttime. So it means that heaven, God, will not let Grendel to hunt and eat men at night anymore. So the poet clearly says that Grendel will die. This is a foreshadowing, and it is not an obscure foreshadowing. It's a very clear foreshadowing. It tells you what will happen next. not gives you a hint, not give you a hint, but tells you what will happen next. And so here, Beowulf's they are fighting. Grendel and Beowulf are fighting, and Beowulf's skills and strength is depicted from Grendel's perspective. Here it says, "Neath the whole of the heavens." Neath is the short form of beneath. Beneath means below. Neath the whole of the heavens, no hand grapple greater in any man else had he ever encountered. He says, the poet says, the monster is surprised at Beowulf's strength, and the monster had never seen such a strong man before. And fearful in spirit, faint-mooded waxed he, not off could betake him that he was pondering, would fly to his covert, seek the devil's assembly. His calling no more was the same he had followed long in his lifetime. So here we see that Grendel is so amazed, and so scared of this strength that he wants to escape. He wants to go back to his lair in the moor, and he wants to hide there. And you know what happens next? Beowulf, with his bare hands, he just dislocates Grendel's arm, and Grendel's cries of pain and terror, they terrify the Danes. The Danes hear the monsters shriek, and they are terrified. They are in wonder. You know, what happened? Did Beowulf manage to defeat this enemy? So here we understand that from what the poet says, that the relentless foeman, no finest of weapons of all on the earth, nor any of warbills was willing to injure. So we understand that Grendel could not be killed by mortal weapons, because Grendel is a monster cursed by God. So no mortals, no weapons that are made by mortals could injure Grendel. So Beowulf most probably didn't know this, but still he may have guessed. So there are some controversy on this point among the scholars who study Beowulf. So either Beowulf didn't know this, but still fought Grendel with bare hands just to be fair, or he guessed this before and he fought him without the sword, without a sword. That is also possible. So this shows us the primal conflict between the opposite forces, the theme of the primal conflict between evil and good. And the pure evil here is embodied by Grendel, and pure good is embodied by Beowulf. So they used only nature's weapons in their conflict. It means their own strength, their own bare hands. So this supports the theme of the primal conflict between good and evil. So in the following lines, it is that Grendel is depicted as a suffering monster, and he's so badly wounded and bleeding all over, and he goes back to his lair in the moor, and there he starts to bleed and loses a lot of blood. While this is happening, Beowulf suspends Grendel's big arm in Heorot, so that all the Danes can see the monster's arm. And either they will think that Grendel will die soon, or they will think that Grendel will not disturb them anymore, will not attack them anymore. And after all these events, after Beowulf defeats Grendel and suspends his arm in the hole, in the following episodes, we see the celebrations of the Danes. Of course, the Danes are so happy because it's been 10 years since this monster began haunting them, and they see with their own eyes that Grandel's blood dyes the waters in red, and from that they conclude that Grendel must be dead. And so here the poet says, he laid down his life in the lair he had fled to. His heathenish spirit, where hell did receive him. So he dies and he goes to hell, another Christian element. And as Cain's descendant, he's forever cursed and doomed to go to hell when killed. As all monsters go, or all evil beings that are cursed by the god, they all go to hell. So everyone hears about Beowulf's heroic achievement, and people praise Beowulf up to a point that they say that the suitable heir, suitable successor after Hrothgar would be Beowulf himself, because Beowulf, but this shows us how big Beowulf's service to the Danes was. So they think that the Danes are so happy. The Danes are saved from so great a danger, so great a curse, that they think after Hrothgar, Beowulf can be the king of the Danes. It is such a big achievement, such a big service. But of course, Beowulf has no intention to stay in Daneland and become king after Hrothgar, because he is embraced by the Geats. He's brought up by the Geats, by the Geatish king. So that's why he, after his job here is done, Beowulf's plan is to go back to Geatland. So not any, however, against, it is the short form of against the friend Lord muttered, mocking words uttered of Hrothgar the Gracious. So the Danes do not talk about Hrothgar in any bad way. Okay, they always talk about him in good way, although he could not do anything against Grendel. They still think that it was only natural for their king to be helpless, so they do not blame their king Hrothgar of being incapable of defeating the enemy, because Grendel is not an ordinary enemy. He's a monster cursed by God, so Hrothgar is just a mortal man with no extraordinary strength, so Hrothgar could not do anything against Grendel. Grendel was a match for an extraordinary hero like Beowulf. So only a superhuman like Beowulf can defeat Grendel and save the Danes. Okay, a man of celebrity, mindful of rhythms, who ancient traditions treasured in memory, new word groups found properly bound, the bard. After began when then Beowulf's venture. So here we see a bard. Bard, you know, we talked about what bard is. Bards are traveling musicians and poets who go around the countries and they sing songs from about what is happening in the other countries. We talked about this. The name bard is a Celtic word. So the Celtic traveling poets were actually called bard. Other words that mean bard are gleeman. Gleeman is the Anglo-Saxon name for bard. So it is again a traveling bard, but in the Anglo-Saxon England. Scop is again an Anglo-Saxon bard, but Scops do not travel a lot. They are bound to the court of a king or a thane. They are patroned by a nobleman. So they travel, but not as frequently as a gleeman. They are less nomadic than a gleeman. So they made more money than a gleeman and had more security. Minstrel is a medieval bard. So gleeman and scop are from Anglo-Saxon England, and minstrel is from medieval England. Minstrels also may travel around, or they can be bound to a court. Troubadour is a medieval traveling bard in other parts of Europe, not in England, mainly in France. So, and the name troubadour is so clearly French. And rhapsode is a performer of poems, again traveling, but rhapsodes do not compose poetry themselves. They generally learn poetry from learn the songs and epics, the stories, etc., from other bards, and they recite what they learn from them. Of course, there must be a kind of creative element in it, because in reciting, there may be changes too. So here, the tradition of a gleeman to sing about the deeds of a hero is depicted in this poem. So the society of the Danes thanks Beowulf by praising him in a song, in the Gleeman song, and this, as the Gleeman composes a song here for this event, the Danes are going to remember Beowulf and what he did, as long as this song is sung by the Danes. So this adds to Beowulf's reputation as a hero. So this is Beowulf is a young hero, and this is his first very big achievement, because in this one he saves a whole society of the Danish people. So this adds to Beowulf's reputation and contributes to him being immortal, being remembered by the coming generations. All right. So the bard says, everything told he that he heard as to Sigmund's mighty achievements, many things hidden, etc. So here the bard compares Beowulf to Sigmund, another hero. Sigmund was like Beowulf, but he lived before, so most probably he's not alive now. He must be again an extraordinary hero like Beowulf, who was also immortalized in songs and stories. This comparison between Beowulf and Sigmund serves to the purpose of showing Beowulf in a better light. So the audience, the Danes, already know who Sigmund is. So when they hear that Beowulf is compared to Sigmund, they will think that Beowulf is as good as Sigmund, another very great hero. So this is to emphasize Beowulf's strength. So Beowulf is as good and strong and smart as Sigmund. And also the name Sigmund. It is used, it may be used as a foreshadowing, because Sigmund is famous for slaying a great fire dragon, which later in the story in Beowulf, when Beowulf becomes the king of the Geats, and when he gets old, a fire dragon attacks his people, and he saves his people from the fire dragon as well, although he's old and not so strong anymore. So the mention of Sigmund can also be a foreshadowing. And there is another comparison here. This time, this comparison is between Heremod and Beowulf. Heremod was an unfortunate Danish king, and his hero strength failed him, his vigor and valor. Amid venomous haters to the hands of foemen, he was foully delivered, oft-driven early. Agony below oppressed him too long, and to his people he became then, to all the earthlings, and an ever great burden. So this time Heremod is in contrast to Beowulf and Sigmund. So this comparison is actually a contrast. Comparison, when we say comparison, we mean the similar things between two things. When we say contrast, we mean different things between different points of two things. So Beowulf is not like Heremod. In this part, it is emphasized that Heremod was not wanted by the Danish people. He was a burden to his people. He didn't have any strength, any function. He could not serve his people well. So Beowulf is not like that. Again, it is to emphasize Beowulf's good virtues. And in the last part, after this part, the bard praises his own king too. King Hrothgar is also praised here. Okay, now in episode 16, Hrothgar lavishes gifts upon Beowulf, which was expected of him as a good king, as a just king, fair king. So here there is a list of the gifts. As I told you, in epic poetry, we must expect some lists of items, lists of men, men in an army, lists of weapons, lists of armors, lists of animals. And here we have the list of the gifts that Hrothgar gives Beowulf. And as you can see, this is a long list. So this shows Hrothgar's kindness and generosity, and also how happy Hrothgar is, how he appreciates Beowulf's invaluable service. So the banquet continues, the celebrations continue in episode 17. The Scop, in this part, the Scop sings a song about Finn and Nef. Nef or Nef, both are correct. Because we are not sure how Anglo-Saxons pronounced these names. Anglo-Saxon English, the Old English, is now lost to us. It is a dead language, so we don't know how it was spoken. We can still learn Old English, reading, translating, we can learn that, but nobody speaks Old English, so we don't, and it was impossible to record Old English back then, so we are not sure how to pronounce most of the words and names. The Finn episode. It is also called the Finn episode. Finn was the king of the Frisians, and Hnef was the king of the Danes. And in the main story about Beowulf and Grendel is interrupted here by the bard to tell the story of Finn. Not to tell the story of Finn actually, because clearly the bard here is not telling a story is not telling a story in his song. When you tell a story, you introduce the characters, you explain the conflict. There is a plot structure in a story, can be climactic or linear. It doesn't matter. But here we have none of that. We don't have the elements of plot structure that are expected from a story. Also, we are not introduced into the characters and why. We are going to talk about it now. Such episodes, which seems entirely irrelevant to the main story, but actually relevant, because if it wasn't relevant, the poet wouldn't write about it. And so these episodes may serve various purposes, and academics of Old English, experts, masters of Old English literature, cannot agree on the purpose of this episode. So now we are going to discuss what can be the purpose of that. So the Finn saga. Saga means legend. It is a legend about the king of the Frisians, who is called king. And today, so little is known about this legend because there aren't enough surviving written sources. So when you first read this episode, if you didn't understand anything from it, you are not alone, because even the academics, even the scholars of Old English cannot understand what is happening there, because we don't know what happened between Finn and Nef. There are only two sources about the Finn legend. One is the Finnsburg fragment. It is a fragment from a poem. The whole poem could not survive. We only have 50 lines of the poem. It is about the battle between Hnef and Finn, but the reason or the outcome of the conflict are not mentioned in this 50-line fragment. So we don't know why there was a dispute between them, and we don't know what happened after the dispute, how the dispute was resolved. We have no idea. The Finn episode in Beowulf is the other surviving fragment about this Finn saga. But in this one, as I told you, the poet leaves out a great deal of the story. He doesn't introduce the characters. He doesn't talk about the dispute, the battle between Finn and Nef, and what happened actually. He doesn't talk about that because his audience at that time, the Anglo-Saxons, they already knew the whole story. So it was a well-known story to Anglo-Saxons, but it is a complete mystery to us today because we have no idea what happened in this legend. Well, as the bard's audience, as the poets, the Beowulf poets who wrote down this story, this epic, his audience is familiar with the story. The poet abruptly begins his song in the middle of the events, right after Hnef is slain by Finn. This is called in medias res. So the story, the episode of Finn, the legend of Finn, begins in medias res, which means in the middle of the events. So at the beginning of this episode, Hnef is already slain by Finn. The poet here has no need to introduce the characters and no need to give background knowledge to the audience about the conflict, because, as I told you, his audience already knows the whole story. The Finn episode consists of 5 sections. In the first section, we see Hildeburh's tragedy is depicted. In the second one, Hengest troubled conscience is dealt with. And in the third section we go back to Hildebur, and in the fourth section we go back to Hengest, and in the fifth section we have a conclusion which looks fragmented, which looks separate from the other four sections, for the reasons that we are going to discuss now. In the Hildebur part, when we read the sections 1 and 3, we understand that Finn is the king of the Frisians, and Hnef is the king of the Danes, and Hildebur is Finn's wife, the queen, and sister to Hnef. So Finn killed his own brother-in-law in battle. This means treachery, treason. It means treason, because there's a political marriage between Hildebur and Finn. So this marriage is most probably done to have peace, to establish peace between Frisians and the Danes. So what happened? How did this peace break? We don't know. So Hildebur's son, the prince, Hildebur's son from Finn, the prince of the Frisians, is also killed in the battle. And we, at the opening of the episode, we see that Hildebur is grieving. She is in pain of loss of her brother and her son, and also the other Danes who are killed in conflict during the conflict. So sections 1 and 3 deal with Hildebur's tragedy. She puts her son and brother on the funeral pyre along with all her kinsmen. And the main theme of sections 1 and 3 is the tragedy of a mother and sister, her innocence and helplessness in the face of this terrible fate. So her pain as a mother is depicted here. In sections 2 and 4, we see Hengest, what is going on in Hengest's mind. So we understand Hengest is a new lord of the Danes. So he was appointed as the lord of the Danes after the king of the Danes, after Hnef was killed. Finn cannot drive Hengest and the Danes out of his mead hall. They are all in Frisia at the moment. And because of military reasons, the number of the Danes and the number of the Frisians are almost even. So if they go into another battle against each other, they will kill each other. So most probably there won't be many people left alive. That's why Finn doesn't want to, Finn cannot risk another conflict with the Danes. So they have to they have to establish truce, peace between each other. So Finn comes up with some terms of truce which are as fair as possible. The Danes are in the enemy territory. Frisians are now their enemies because they slain their king. And it is winter, so the Danes cannot escape. The Danes cannot go back to their own country. Because during the winter, the sea is very stormy. So you can't make it to Daneland alive from Frisia on your ships. So Hengest is compelled to accept Finn's terms. And to recognize him as his king and to swear him loyalty. And we see that Hengest is not happy while doing this because Finn is the slayer of his king, Hnef. So while he swears loyalty to Finn, while he calls Finn his king, he has a very troubled conscience. Because he's accepting a traitor as his king. So we see that Hengest secretly swears vengeance. During winter, he was in pain, and because of his troubled conscience. And when spring comes, there is hope blooming in Hengest, and he swears vengeance. He swears to take revenge on Finn. In the conclusion part, the fifth section, we see that two Danish warriors, Gudlaf and Oslav, manage to escape Frisia. They go back to Daneland and tell the Danes what happened, tell the Danes about how Finn slain Nef. The Danes gather an army and they go to Frisia. They attack the mead hall, Finn's mead hall, and they slay Finn in his own hall, thus avenging their late king, Henef, and also they take Hildebur back home. It is a happy ending. But in this conclusion, we don't know what happened to Hengest. Did he manage to avenge Henef? That part is completely lost to us. We don't know. Well, there is a parallelism between Hildebur and Hengest in these 4 chapters. Hengest swears vengeance. Hengest is helpless like Hildebur. So Hengest's purpose is to take revenge on Finn. But from this kind of discourse, we understand that Hengest may, it's not certain, but Hengest may have tried taking revenge, may have tried killing Finn, but most probably he could not achieve. He could not succeed in doing so. He may have been killed by Finn's men. We have no idea. The purpose of this episode, what's that? The function, the purpose of it. It is not to tell the story of Nef and Finn, because as I told you, in a proper storytelling, you would introduce characters, you would have a plot structure, etc., consistent plot structure, etc. But in this episode, we see that the poet only talks about what he wants to emphasize. So that makes us think that the poet's purpose may have been creating pathos. Pathos is evoking the feeling of pity in the audience. It is a dramatic effect. So when the audience hears about Hildebur, Hengest, Henef, they immediately start feeling pity because they know what happened to them. So they share their grief in losing. One loses his brother, her brother, and her son. The other one loses his king and feels himself guilty for swearing allegiance to the new king, to Finn. So this evokes the feelings of pity in the audience. And the episode has a happy ending. So this happy end, this song which ends happily, is suitable for the rejoicing of the Danes after Grendel is killed. And it is also another story of how the Danes can overcome any disaster. So again, this makes it suitable for the celebrations. And lastly, the purpose of this episode may be a foreshadowing to the grief of Grendel's mother, like Hildebur, Grendel's mother, is also a mother, so she's going to grieve for the death of her son, and also she will seek revenge, and she will get this revenge from the Danes by abducting and killing a Dane man. So it can be a foreshadowing to what will happen in the next episodes. All right. There was choices of banquets, wine drank the heroes, weird they knew not, destiny cruel. As to many an earlman early it happened, when evening had come and Hrothgar had parted off to his manor, the mighty to slumber. So here in this part, weird, today, this word means strange, weird, strange. But in the Old English, weird meant fate. So this is the last part of the Beowulf versus Grendel section. And here after the banquet, everybody cheers up, everybody has a great time, so much fun, and they drink a lot, and it's time to go to sleep. And here the poet says they don't know that fate is still at work. They go to bed entirely unaware of what is coming next. But we know what is coming next, right? It is Grendel's mother, an attack from Grendel's mother. So this part is also a foreshadowing about what is to come. And it is the intention of such a foreshadowing. The purpose of such a foreshadowing is, of course, to create suspense. So, as I told you, we are only talking about the Grendel versus Beowulf section. There are 3 sections in the epic. The second section is about Beowulf versus Grendel's mother, and the last section is about Beowulf versus the dragon. So the pattern of all 3 sections are similar. It begins with this content, and then discontent and discomfort, and then comes the hero to save the hour, and then the hero saves the people, defeats the enemy, and then there are the celebrations. The second section is also like this, Beowulf versus Grendel's mother, and the last section is almost similar to that, but at the end there are no celebrations. There is the funeral of Beowulf instead of the celebrations. So what should we remember about Beowulf? We should remember that Beowulf is one of the few surviving poems from the Old English period. So it has the qualities of the transition from oral literature to written literature, because Beowulf, the story Beowulf, the legend of Beowulf is a production of oral literature, but it is written down by a Christian monk centuries later. So this means that the written tradition, the written literature, well, there was no originality during that time. I mean, original did not mean composing a story entirely out of your own mind. The originality at that time was considered, you should take a real story, a legend from the past, and you should rewrite it in your own original way. So this is the same in the medieval age and the Renaissance as well. Original people did not expect you to create an entirely fictional story. They expected you to take a story which is already known and write it down in your own way. And it is, and here, that's why we say that in the Old English period, we have the transition from oral literature to written literature. Beowulf has a complete plot structure, logic, history, and aesthetics of its own, and it reflects the practices and traditions of Anglo-Saxon people. So although it is a pagan story, it contains Christian elements because it was written down by a Christian monk for a Christian audience, and it is a highly artistic demonstration of Old English. So there's spoken Old English, and there is written Old English, and there is also artistically written Old English. And this shows us a good example of how Old English can be used for artistic purposes. And also it provides an insight to the mindset and the worldview of the Anglo-Saxons. And as the reader of Beowulf, what do we learn from it? We learn how to be a good hero, how to be a good king. We learn that good always wins against evil, and God rewards you if you're good. And fate is inevitable. You cannot escape your fate. Mortality is a sad but inevitable fact of life, and there is always hope. These are the messages that we can get from Beowulf. So that's all for the legend of Beowulf and Grendel. See you in my next video, which will be about the Second Shepherd's Play. Take care.